All right. I feel like it's different with that at head height because it's almost never head height. So, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Today is the 4th of September, actually, 2025. This is our main side of In The Image Clothing Company, one of our fourths. I'll talk about each of the 4 sides, and we'll talk about where clothing sits, and then we'll get into the discussion. This video is actually titled The Importance of Even Nostrils. Weird if you don't know who we are. In The Image Clothing Company. Yeah, I'm talking about nostrils in the nose. Yes, we'll get into it because here on the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, what we do is allow the human body to work. This is just one of our fourths, and we're not about clothing really all that much. We're just about the human body's natural functioning, the anatomy of the body we discuss in depth. But clothing's placed on us, and it's the only thing physically placed on us. It's going to alter our bodies if it's imbalanced, and our bodies have a center line on Earth's gravity. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, okay, the importance of even nostrils, and the jaw. The jaw naturally stabilizes the entire body. We've got 2 feet that grip arches inward that keep us vertical. And when clothing's placed on us, it has to stay centered, fit correct, where I'll discuss here in a minute, and be made from 100% natural materials. The human body's natural. One of the things that allows us to even be in the Image Clothing Company is that unnatural materials are new, just decades old. Things like tags in clothing are just decades old. Stretch in clothing is just decades old as of today's date. And stretch goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles could ever work. Musculature in the body only contracts, meaning getting shorter. The bicep shortens to close the arm, and the opposing muscle, the triceps, shorten to extend the arm. Just as one of the functions, the elbow, for example, the whole body's that way. So we just allow the body to work. We know how to by just keeping it unaltered. We get out of chronic patterning and scar tissue under In The Image Clothing Company that we get into over years, especially ropes being introduced to the body, drawstrings, shoelaces, just ropes with knots tied one side over the other, rotating the entire body and damaging it, okay? Things from the feet can go all the way to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers with rotation imbalances and just alteration to the body that stays deeply in our bodies, okay? So that's really what we are under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. Then we have another 4th of us, In The Image Clothing Company Poodles. We specialize in purebred standard poodles. We breed them properly, registering them under the American Kennel Club and advocating for doing so. I understand, by the way, that there is shadowing from this crossbar of this soccer goal post, which is my tripod, coming onto my face from where the sun is. It is what it is, okay? There's noise. In The Image Clothing Company, we are who we are, and we make it clear. So, purebred standard poodles, allowing dogs to just be dogs. Our slogan is letting dogs stay natural. It's the same thing as allowing the body to work for human beings, but it's specifically for dogs. A whole 4th of our company dedicated to specifically purebred standard poodles. Here in Utah, the United States of America, this beautiful state has a lot of beautiful nature, and we will have a lot of what we call poodle parade events under In The Image Clothing Company. Poodles, bring your purebred poodles of any size or poodle mixes of any size. We'll do a lot of fun things in nature, just hanging out. I'll give a lot of information on letting dogs stay natural and just all that comes with that. Check scheduling on InTheImageClothingCompany.com for poodle parade events. Now we have another 4th of us, and before I get there, a lot of what we do is things for the environment as well, cleaning up things like Clean the Creek specific poodle parade events, actually cleaning up trash. So we'll get into it. Check the announcements on InTheImageClothingCompany.com, as I was saying, for each individual event that we have under In The Image Clothing Company. But In The Image Clothing Company music, the main thing that I do there for the human body's natural function is showing the sizing and setup of guitars to not alter things like the neutral wrist. Not only is there a center line to the body, but every joint in the body has a neutral position, and it has to reside in that position always, unless just being used for something else, because there's only one way the human body could ever work. And it will get into chronic patternings if we're using our bodies out of their only neutrals, meaning in any other position, for any extended period of time, okay? So sizing and setup of guitars. I do lyricism. We make music there that I place, that I've personally made. A lot of music geared mostly and just about always around the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's really cool stuff that we do. Metronome madness. I go off the top, if you will. Freestyle lyricism, and there's actually a lot that we do on In the Image Clothing Company music. Now, we have another fourth of us, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. What we do there is have deep discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. We're all human beings, all on the same earth. We all have one God. We discuss him there as he says that he is. We do it as well as we can. Being imperfect, we discuss it and get into depth. We're on episode 155 as of the last one we filmed, so check that out if you'd like. A lot of beautiful insights on life. Okay. A lot of cool stories too as well get told on In the Image Clothing Company podcast. So, clothing for everybody has to sit in the same location. If you're a man or a woman, if you're tall or short, skinny or fat, any age, any part of the earth, or from any time period ever, the body is just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. There's only one way the human body could ever work, as I said, and pants need to be entirely above our hips. So there's no restriction to the functionality of our hips or pelvis structure as a whole. That's actually our natural waist. And there we need our waistline of our pants slightly higher in the front than the rear. So now we can bend side to side, we can move, we can keep our hamstrings and our core activated together in that neutral position with that hip structure slightly posteriorly tucked underneath us, just to keep us vertical on Earth's gravity. Okay, we talk about things like how drawstrings affect body mechanics, a video of ours under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, zipper modifications under In the Image Clothing Company, and all sorts of things around the waistline of pants. Now we have tops that we wear as well. Tops have seams that need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders on top of them, because our shoulders will follow the shoulder seams, and our shoulders only ever work behind our head. That's just where they connect mechanically, the musculature to the base of the rear of the skull, the spine, and the top and rear of the shoulder. That's really where our shoulders sit, neutral, natural, normal, with gravity, okay? The edges of our tops need to be right at the very edges of our shoulders, because that's where the functionality of the shoulder joint is. It's a joint of material as well as a joint of things like the upper arm bone into the collarbone, the scapula, okay, bones themselves join in the same location. We have two things we call prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company, just to not alter the body. Firstly, we're only weaving ropes across the feet. When we call it shoelacing, and there's only one way to weave a rope across the top of the human foot without altering its mechanics. There's so much happening in the feet with those arches gripping, the pinky toes pointing forward, the neutral ankle traveling up to the hips, through the whole body, like I said, to the tip of the head, the tips of the fingers. In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique is what we title just the only way you will not restrict your feet while weaving ropes across the top of them, okay? We tie shoes as well, and you have to tie shoes opposite on each side of the center line of the body, okay? Over toward the center line, over toward the inside on both feet, okay? Evenly. We can get rotation issues traveling through our whole body from just a knot of a rope around our ankle. I filmed a video yesterday titled The Importance of Even Achilles tendon insertions, which is that tendon that comes down the rear of our leg and connects to our heel of our foot. Okay, that directly comes from shoelacing imbalances, okay, shoe tying imbalances, okay, the Achilles tendon. So let's get into this after I say our second prerequisite: removing all tags from clothing. Anywhere a tag's placed in clothing, it's either causing a physical gap, changing the body's only working position, and or just not allowing musculature to activate, and then the body's trying to compensate, and it cannot. Everything in the body has a role to play. It has to do that thing, otherwise damage, okay? So there you go. Let's talk about the importance of even nostrils. I know kind of seems a little bit out there for a clothing company if you don't know who we are as In the Image Clothing Company, but really what we do is deal with Earth's gravity. I mean, that's the point. You keep clothing centered because otherwise it'll just be pulling down off to the side of you, and your body will be pulled off as well, and gravity just has a center line that it pulls down on everything with. So our bodies need to be centered over gravity, but centered over our own center as well. And the nose is one of those things that I mention in the intros when I talk about the center line of the body, because it is in the middle of our nose. We have what's called a septum, which divides right in the center our two nostrils. Nostrils are just holes in the nose that allow oxygen to come into the lungs, and then we have two lungs opposing the center line of the body, right? The sternum, and then directly behind it, the spine. And so if our nostrils are not even, right, hence this video's title, The Importance of Even Nostrils, then we will have different amounts of air coming into the right versus the left side of the body. And this does a lot. It does a lot to the musculature in the face. It does a lot to the musculature in the neck. Okay, keeping collars centered. We talk about it under In the Image Clothing Company. We have videos about it. We have one titled That Specific, right? But as you can see, all the musculature coming up through my collar, where my neck is here, okay? Or I guess through my neck, where my collar is here. We have to keep our collars centered. So things like In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification, when there's a seam in the collar of our top, it's not going to sit evenly around our neck, which needs to, right? So we modify seams in collars to keep them even around the neck. Now, there's a lot going on that comes from the nostrils because there are diaphragms in our neck as well as in our abdomen. Diaphragms are what allow us to breathe, okay? The musculature that opens a void really is what happens in our lungs, and then the air pressure changes. We inhale air and then we exhale air. Point being, okay, because we could get into all the explanation of that, our nostrils just need to be even, because otherwise you've got different amounts of air coming in one side versus the other, and we've got our ribs surrounding our lungs, and our ribs expand and contract in 360 degrees, meaning all the way around. Each breath we take, our rib cage, meaning all those individual bones going around, connecting from the sternum around to the back to the spine, right? From up here at the collarbone insertion, okay, the clavicle to the sternum, all the way down to the lowest rib, okay, above the natural waist, if you will, like I show, above the hips, but below the lowest ribs. That's where our pants sit, that's where we bend, that's our natural waist. All the ribs in here, they're actually physically moving. They're solid bone, but they really do flex a lot. And what are they connected to? The spine. So if we've got different amounts of air coming through each nostril, because the nostrils in our nose are different sizes, then it will send different amounts of air to each side of our body, expanding or contracting our lungs at different sizes on each side. And as our lungs expand and contract, they're within our rib cage, which is connected to our spine, and then those ribs come into the spine and the spine twists, okay? So there's a lot that goes on with just a little bit of an imbalance to our nostrils. And in modern 2025, it's very rare to go around and see people who have a centered septum, okay? The center part of their nose. But there's a lot that goes into this because the jaw stabilizes the entire body, okay? And our jaw comes down and connects to our shoulders. And so, as I say, and it just is the case, not just because we have a clothing company, clothing is the only fix for human beings' physical problems, okay? Truly, it's the only thing physically placed on us. So if our collars are uncentered, our jaw will be. And if our jaw is stabilizing our body out of its only center rather than in the center and over the center of gravity, then that alone will just cause our lungs to be expanding and contracting differently because the spine is just not in the center, being stabilized by the jaw. And also, our nose will just not be able to be in the center either. We talk about a lot of things within clothing, free modifications and little things that are tweaks, and I understand there's noise through just about this whole video so far. That's fine. I'm at a point right here, as in this timeline within the Image Clothing Company, where it's like, just keep going no matter what. So yeah, okay, little context. But here's the thing with our shoulder seams is our shoulders connect to our center, okay? The sternum here, the bone in the middle of the front of the rib cage, musculature connects to the sternum and out to the shoulder. And then in the rear, musculature connects to the spine and out to the shoulder, okay, at the edges of the shoulder in both the front and the rear. And that's going to just pull on all of our skin, all of our musculature. The musculature on the tip of the head that you can see moving here, because there are little muscles all across the top of the skull, the forehead, all through the head. There's musculature. The same skin on the top of the head is the same skin that's on your shoulders. And so if your shoulder seams are pulling your shoulders, it's pulling on the skin clear up to the top of your head. But really the reason to mention that is because clear up to your nose, okay? It's literally just pulling the skin if your shoulder seams are falling off to one side. So things like the dreaded collar seam, right? That's what it'll do. This shirt's inside out. Normally, just about all the time, the dreaded collar seam, meaning just the seam in the collar of our tops. In the Image Clothing Company calls it the dreaded collar seam because of what it does. It's almost always on the upper left side, right by this upper left trapezius muscle. And it'll place the collar of our tops off to the right. So now everything on the right side of the body, all through the neck, through the shoulder, through the pectoral muscles, the upper trapezius, and the sternocleidomastoid muscle that's here from the skull down to the collarbone area and the sternum, and just the whole side of the face, the side of the head, the jaw is all being pulled on, and your nose as well. Okay, so you look around and you see people and their shoulder seams don't sit evenly at the edges of their shoulders. I was that way as well. Yikes. That's what I say, right? I speak out of personal experience. As the founder of the Image Clothing Company, I have had to get out of these chronic patternings myself. I had a terribly deviated septum, if you will, meaning the septum, the center of my nose, was so far off to the right for so many years. If you ever see photos or videos of me before founding in the Image Clothing Company, and even at the founding, comparing to today's date, yes, okay. I've had to do a lot of work to break up the cartilage and just built up excess skin, scar tissue in the right side of my nose to get my nose centered, okay? Because what'll happen with an imbalanced nose is your shoulders will have pain. They just won't work correct. You'll never get your right shoulder to actually contract the musculature, the upper trapezius muscle here, right? That connects from the shoulder up to the spine of the neck and the rear of the skull. That'll never contract. The upper pectoral muscle will never contract naturally, evenly with the other side. If your nose is off to the right and you're breathing, expanding the whole right side of your body more than the left, really what you're doing is pushing it off to the side. If the right side of your rib cage expands more than your left, your right arm will dangle off to the side more than your left, because the rib cage is just opening farther. You have to clear your rib cage with your elbow, okay? And that goes to your nose, is the point, okay? And every breath you take, and breath is the first thing we need as a human being. We're breathing a lot of times per minute, okay? So at the very founding of In The Image Clothing Company, I used to talk often about training patternings, and I kind of focused on it like that. Like everything we do in our lives, we're training patternings. And the big focus is breathing. We're always breathing. And now you picture this, right? The nose off-centered. You're training your whole body to breathe multiple times every minute that you're alive, imbalanced. And it goes into everything, because from your nose, it can go to your mouth, meaning your jaw. The jaw stabilizing the entire body. I talk about it like this. We don't have to have a perfect looking smile, but we do have to have our teeth meshing centered above our body's center and the center of gravity, because our jaw stabilizes our entire body. There's musculature here in the jaw. This starts at the lower jaw down here and goes all the way up to the crown of our head up here. Okay, you can probably see it as I clench my teeth. So, if your nose is off-centered, okay, coming from anything, but it will be coming from clothing. If your clothing's imbalanced, it's placed physically on you, then it will cause your jaw to be imbalanced as well. And not only for that reason, just because breathing imbalances, but the bottom of your septum here, it connects to your upper lip. And now picture speaking. And as you speak, the skin of your upper lip moves, and if that septum's off to one side, you'll always talk out one side of your mouth only. And if you're doing that, now all the musculature in your cheeks and in your eyebrows and your whole body, really, but your whole face, your whole head, will be just off to one side, because as your lips are moving, it's pulling on this septum. And if it's imbalanced, then your mouth will move off to the side. Okay, and that will travel through your whole body. So it's really actually just huge, the importance of even nostrils. And, you know, we talk about keeping short sleeves short. And if our short sleeves are touching our forearms, we can't actually just bend our elbows all the way. We'll hit into material of the sleeve, and the body will then compensate in parts of it, like the shoulder, right? The hands are essentially the shoulders. That's the big thing with guitar setups, right? And just keeping those natural rounded hand arches that correlate with the arches in our feet, right? Those open palms out that neutral wrist from the pinky, right? And the outside of the forearm. But short sleeves, if they're on your forearms, they're probably not even. I made a video actually a couple days ago under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company here, titled The Importance of Even Short Sleeves, because of this very reason, actually. When you bend your arms, if your top is uncentered and your short sleeves are only touching one of your forearms, that whole side of your body will be dropped and be compensating and stretched, right? All the skin, like I'm saying here. So that in itself will pull your nose off to one side. Every time you move your arms and one of your arms hits material and it has to move out of the way and drop, right? The right-handed patterning, the right-handed world, the right side of the body gets lower, more externally rotated, meaning just rotating away from the body's center and then farther away from the body's center. And so now, something like your uneven short sleeves will cause your nose to be pulled on to the side that the material's resting on your arm, and your nose will be imbalanced, okay? Because this is just always, I mean, you're always within clothing. And so if it's just about always imbalanced, those imbalances are going into your body, into the musculature of your body, into the skin, right? Chronically stretched skin versus chronically shortened skin, chronically elongated, in other words, stretched muscles versus, you know, muscles that can work fairly well on the other side. We talk about bone spurs that get built up. I mentioned the Achilles tendon, like that video I made yesterday. The importance of even Achilles tendons, insertions, because we talk about the right side of the body being the only side, okay, I know that seems bold, but basically the only side of the body you need to address, at least your dominant side. But clothing patterns themselves are right-handed, the way that they're designed, if there are imbalances left to right, it'll put our bodies into a right-handed patterning. We live in a right-handed world where products that are designed to be used are designed to be used with the right hand if they're one-hand type designs. Okay, and that'll just put our bodies into this patterning. Farther away on the right, more externally rotated on the right, which drops the body on the right, okay? So, Earth's gravity, it remains, and it does what it does to everything. These poles out here, these trees, this soccer goal post, me as I'm standing here. And there's a lot of motion that happens in the body when we breathe. It takes the entire body to breathe. Some sort of something has to happen in the whole body. Every breath you take, even if it's just stabilization. There's a lot of stabilizing muscles in the body that are fairly small, or maybe really small, but they do a lot to stabilize. See me squinting as the sun is in my eyes. Just picture all the musculature in my face that goes into squinting. Your nose has to stay in the center of that. Otherwise, if you have imbalances, okay, like a dreaded collar seam, which it's on the right, but the shirt's inside out. It's almost always on the left. Your whole body will be off to one side anyway. And now when you squint, you'll squint off to one side, and now you're breathing off to one side, and your nostrils will just move off uneven to one side. It's almost always the right. And this is just really what it is. This is the actual truth of why people have deviated septums. It also comes down to things like the hand arches, though. We live in a modern man-made world, okay? And there's so many things that are just so unnaturally flat, and our hands only ever work rounded. Again, like I talk about with guitar setups and the radius that's necessary in guitars. And everything we hold in our hands, we need to keep that natural rounding to the hands, okay? So, fingernails, hugely important, okay, to support the tips of the fingers. That's why they're there. People cut their fingernails too short. And actually, yeah, if you're doing things more often with your right hand, you'll cut your right fingernails shorter a lot of the time because they're easier to clean. And then your right hand's inhibited and it goes up to your shoulder, and then it pulls on your face and your whole head, and it pulls your nose off to the right. So the point being, truly, we have to keep our nose centered. And the reason why it's uncentered is because of clothing. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Mind the Gap. And I talked about, among a lot of things, right, Gospel of Jesus Christ related things, minding the gap in those ways. But physically, the gap between our own arms and our own sides, like the elbow and the rib cage, really the elbow rests right at that natural waist, right below our lowest rib, but tags in clothing, okay? Side seams in clothing, especially rotated seams. We have clothing that's stitched by machinery in factories nowadays, and the seams will rotate and they'll twist the whole body into the same right-handed patterning, almost always. That's the direction they'll be stitched, is to where the right side of the body rotates external. And so now if you're just standing like this in a patterning, you're breathing and you're just looking right all the time. You're breathing and your right side is just farther away all the time. If you are in an oversized top and you just do have a gap, it's going to be a bigger gap on your right side because clothing will just fall to your dominant side. If there's any give within the material at all, it'll wear more on the side you're using more, your right side. And so the shoulder seams will fall off to your right more than your left. And then there you go. You've got a gap now just traveling down between your own arm and your own side and the material because it's just farther off to the side. You've got the shoulder seam just farther off to the side, pulling on your whole neck and your spine, right? I mean, this muscle, this upper trapezius goes directly from the edge of the shoulder here to the spine. And so when the shoulder goes away, your whole neck twists as well, and your nose has to stay in the center, okay? So, yeah. The importance of even nostrils. We think about drawstrings here. We talk about them. The slipped lap knot is what I show as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company to use for drawstrings. Then you have an entirely horizontal waist band okay? You tie the tail end of the drawstring over toward the center. Everything comes to the center of the body because there's a center line, right? The musculature itself just connects at the center. That's where internal rotation comes from. That's where the strength of the body is closest to itself, really just closest to the musculature's insertion, okay? Contracting, shortening the muscles. But if you take a drawstring and you tie it one side over the other, you just rotate your whole pelvis, okay? Your whole hip structure. So now let's say you've got an uneven drawstring knot. It travels from your hips up your spine to your nose, okay? You rotate your whole spine. Now your nose is sitting like I was showing with the rotated seams, and we do have In The Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification you can check out under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. But you will have your body looking off to one side because your hips are just rotated, and so your body has to try to compensate, and it can't. It's damaging it. But always looking off to one side, your nose will always be off to one side. Now you'll just breathe imbalanced through your nose, okay? Traveling down, shoelaces, right? One of our 2 prerequisites, because there's only one way the human feet work and are shaped, and there's only one neutral position to the ankle, the outward curvature of the lower leg, traveling up to the hips and their function. There's rotations in the lower leg, which we have a video under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company here titled Rotations of the Lower Leg, but then those travel up to the hip as well. The feet are essentially the hips, as the hands are essentially the shoulders, okay? Like this. Rotations at the hand are exactly the same thing as rotations at the shoulder, okay? But then the lower leg and the forearm, a video we have under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, that's its title, the forearms and the lower leg, okay? But there's rotations in the forearm as well as in the lower leg. So if we have our shoes tied unevenly, even laced in a way where just the arches are differently able to work, there's not just that natural position for the shape of the feet arches, that'll travel to our nose, okay? We're breathing, and your feet are stabilizing every breath you take. You try to walk a line, like one of these painted lines on the soccer field. Try to walk on a curb or across a branch or a log, breathing, and then try to do it while you hold your breath, right? Our feet stabilize our breath hugely, big time, okay? Even though our nose is clear up here and our feet are clear down there, as we say, it's just the truth. Under In The Image Clothing Company, we make it clear the human body can only ever actually work how it's really designed by God to work, activated as a whole. Everything is there, and there's a reason for that. So, yeah, the nose, it just has to stay centered. And, you know, you picture anything. You know, we talked about short sleeves sitting on the forearms, how sleeve cuffs affect body mechanics, a video we have under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. If you have sleeve cuffs on your hands, your natural hand workings, neutral wrist, open hand arches will be altered on whatever side that the sleeve cuff is sitting more on your hand. And your hand is essentially your shoulder. And we talked about in this video quite thoroughly how the shoulder pulls on the nose. Okay, it's just the same skin. We have the same skin on the surface of all of our body as any of it, right? There's only one way the human body could ever work. So there's a lot that goes into this, and yeah, where I was getting when I was saying the short sleeves, not only, just discrepant short sleeves, meaning uneven length, and one side's just always dropped and it's pulling on your nose from the sleeve material sitting on your forearm, dropping your shoulder, which the skin then gets pulled, right, from the shoulder to the nose. Also, just blowing your nose. If you have something like an imbalanced collar, you have collar material, just meaning the material of your top that is your collar, sitting around your neck uneven and just pulling on you to one side. If you grab a tissue or whatever it is in your hands to blow your nose, you'll come up like this, right? You're just having material pull on your neck. And, well, there's diaphragms in your neck, right? We breathe with our neck as well as our abdomen, but also just the weight of the material, also just the material in the way, like the short sleeves on our forearms. You will just be coming to your nose imbalanced, and you'll blow your nose like this, imbalanced. You'll clear one side of your nose more than the other side of your nose, one of your nostrils, okay? Then you'll be able to breathe easier through that side than the other side. Also, you just press against the material of your nose. The nose is cartilage, and it gets built up excessively. Like I'm saying, what I've had to do in my own, just to break up the cartilage on the side of my nose on the right, because it's just built up excessively. But that's the big point, is if you're basically always in a right-handed patterning, what we show under In the Image Clothing Company, the things that come from clothing and just the right-handed world, when you blow your nose, you'll just be looking off to the right, like I'm saying, right? The things that we're discussing, and the knots in our waist or in our shoes, if they're uneven, things in our pockets, if you place anything there, which you never should do, it's directly altering your hips. Your pants are being held on at your hip area. They really should be above your hips. But anything in your pocket is just pulling on your hips, and now you twist your whole body. If you're right-handed, you'll put things in your pocket with your right hand, probably, right? The majority of the time, that's what you would do. So now you've got more weight on your right side. You just can't lift your body as well on the right side just from that alone, just to blow your nose. So you'll blow your nose off to the right, clearing your right nostril more than your left. And then when you breathe, there's more oxygen coming in your right nostril than your left. And then, like we were saying earlier, the discrepancy in the expansion of the lungs and the motion in the ribs, twisting the spine, going all the way down to the feet from our nose, but also, right, coming from the feet up to the nose with discrepancies at the shoelacing, okay? So it's just as real as it is. It's as real as it gets. It's as obvious as it is once you see it, right? These things that I say about what we are under In the Image Clothing Company, this is the real reason people have deviated septums. But just, you think about gravity pulling on everything, always. And so it just pulls on the skin of your face. And in addition to all the things I've mentioned up until this point in this video, just doing anything with your right hand more than your left, your head will just be off to that side. You're not going to keep your head entirely centered and look at something in your right hand. You'll compensate weight-wise for gravity. That's just how the body works, right? It really is about gravity, and that's what I'm saying. If we're ever looking down at anything in our right hand, gravity just pulls on the skin of the body. It'll just pull on your nose and off to the right, and you see it. That's what I mean. That's why I say it like that. It's just obvious when you look around, but if we don't know where it's coming from, then we don't know where it's coming from. And that's what I say when it comes to ridding scar tissue and patterning. If you don't know where to look, you don't know where to look, right? We talk about the importance of even sternocleidomastoid insertions up here behind the ear. We talk about the importance of even lat insertions, the latissimus dorsi or latissimus dorsi muscle, right? Down here at the pelvis on the right. We talk about patterning on the right side of the body, and you just don't know where to look. If you don't know where it's coming from, why would you have scar tissue there? But clothing, it's placed physically on you. We just don't really give it a second thought because it's placed physically on everybody. It's just clothing, and you just put it on, you know. Usually, that's how people approach it. That's how I always approached it until, you know, around the time founding In the Image Clothing Company, I started to be like, wait, you know, shoelaces, twisting my whole body. Wait, something doesn't feel centered in my top. You know, I came up with through prayer and, yeah, revelation. I mean, seriously, it took a lot to really understand all that I do now, but In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification, right? One of those things where everybody just wears t-shirts that wears t-shirts. It's so common. And the collar seam that's now in clothing design is in the vast majority of t-shirts out there in 2025. Nobody gives it a second thought, usually. But some people really know. Some people really get bothered by it because their bodies are pretty well centered and they're like, man, this seam is really just pulling on my neck, you know. The point is, stuff like that pulls on your nose, or it just pulls on the diaphragms in your neck, closes off one side and the other side can work, right? Or just twist your spine and then there goes your rib expansion. Because if your spine's twisted, your ribs can't expand evenly, right? And so it's just as real as it gets. The importance of even nostrils, okay? That might be all that we say in this. Glasses are huge, right? Anything that clothes the human being is clothing. Glasses placed on the body. I wore glasses for about 2 years within oversized, imbalance to the right, dreaded collar seam, just falling off to the right because it's too big, tags in clothing just causing that to happen actually, right? A lot of things like that. Uneven shoe tying. I was tying drawstrings with a right-handed knot. I was doing all of these things that I talk about as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company that we can't do because there's a center line to the human body on Earth's center of gravity. And within that, I wore glasses. And so now, just if you see how much motion there is in my face when I speak, especially while it's pretty bright. The sun right now is behind the cloud, but all this motion in the face and up in the nose, all the way up to between the eyes where glasses sit, and on the ears, right? You can move your ears need to be even as well. And then also where those glasses go is right to that sternocleidomastoid insertion behind the ear, actually. That's a big thing, you know, but yeah, that's huge. A lot of the scar tissue that got built up in my nose came from glasses sitting on my nose for 2 years with my body always to the right. Okay, deepened the patterning that would have always just happened anyway because of clothing imbalances and just the right-handed world. Okay, so there you go. We'll leave it there. The importance of even nostrils, there you go. Today is the 4th of September, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. And stick around if you'd like, stop back in if you'd like. What I say is stick around for the poodles. What we're going to be doing through In The Image Clothing Company, and as time progresses, it will get more so that way because we don't even have any standard poodles of our own as of today. But through In The Image Clothing Company poodles, as you know, just one of our fourths, it will be huge. All that we do through that, in person, for the environment, for dogs, letting dogs stay natural. Okay, so InTheImageClothingCompany.com, human being clothing, staying centered, fitting correct, being made from 100% natural materials, minimal, simple, nice, okay, allowing the body to work. Also, dog products, same intent for dogs, okay, can be used for any dogs, not just poodle specific. And then poodle puppies, right, when we have them, and there's definitely quite the thorough screening process for who the puppies will go to. But yeah, InTheImageClothingCompany.com. Okay, so stick around, like I said, check out what we do, because one of the most beautiful things, if I'm saying it, of the truth behind what we do under In The Image Clothing Company is my own personal body as the founder, being able to see the transformation that's happened even up until today's date alone since the founding, documenting so much under video, which we will always do. We do a lot under video and through what I call the gift of video. But even just in my face, right in my nose, like I'm saying for this video specific, the importance of even nostrils through the way that I stand and just the rotations in my body, the way that I sit, the way that I can articulate my words now, right? A lot of stuff has changed physically and visually, where you don't have to just do some like assessment to my body to know from what we talk about under In The Image Clothing Company. So I'm so grateful for these documentations that we are having here now, right? A lot of these videos are very long at the founding. It probably won't always look quite like this, but these videos will be able to live on forever and be a testament to the truth of what we really do, allowing the body to work under In The Image Clothing Company. So thank you. Like I said, my name is Evan Strong, and I'm gonna say it again, stick around for the poodles. Goodbye. It'll be cool. I wouldn't be saying it this much. I've made it clear, but I'm gonna say it again. Just remember the dates. If it wasn't going to be huge, I wouldn't be talking about it. In the Image Clothing Company poodles. Okay, thank you. Stick around. Stick around. You notice it didn't cut. I've said all that I need to about the nose, but I will say this. There's a lot that I could say more about things that could go into the nose, right? Tags and clothing are a big one, okay? But dogs. Well, I'll say that as I outro this. I'll just walk because I already am. What we do for human beings' noses is the same for dogs, okay? Keeping collars centered for dogs as well, something that almost never is the case. Dog tags, and then tags like labeling for the product itself of the dog collar in dog collars. A lot of things, buckles and such, harnesses and leashes, a lot of things that just are altering dogs. It goes straight to their nose as well. And so, yeah, right. The importance of even nostrils in the Image Clothing Company poodles, it applies for that as much as it does for human beings, because that's 1/4 of our company. Like I'm saying, that's why it's as big as it is. So there we go. Thank you. And it didn't cut. And I'm gonna say it like this. There's a lot that I could say. A lot of things that could really affect the septum. The nose, in the center, throughout the whole body. Okay, and yeah, there's a lot. So, well, I'll say this, okay? And this is as real as it gets, right? Just walking around in the Image Clothing Company. Don't expect us to be some kind of like professional business. We're just people here helping out, okay? Raw and real, as I say, as this is. So, things like eating and drinking with the left hand. If you notice, I'm using my left hand to hold this camera right now as well. Eating and drinking with the left hand is a video we have under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, but with the jaw stabilizing the entire body, how we keep the jaw centered, and like I was saying, the teeth meshing in the center of gravity, the center of the body, is by eating with both sides of our bodies. Teeth just naturally wear down. You're grinding food together. They just wear down over time. That's not a bad thing. They just would with friction. So people's jaws are often so far off to the right because they're eating on only the right side of their body, meaning only with their right hand, okay? But then also just chewing within imbalanced clothing, okay? The big point with that right now is that'll go straight to your nose, right? Like I was saying about the mouth and how the bottom of the septum gets moved by the upper lip moving. You're chewing food, and as you are, your upper lip is moving, and it's moving the septum in your nose, okay? So if you're eating off to one side only, there you go. You're training your nose and the cartilage in it off to the right, okay? If you're using your right hand. So I'm not trying to cut it premature. I'm not, torn up about it that it didn't cut. I think I tried 3 full times already. But this is how we are too, right? Where we just say what we need to when we need to. We give and get insights when we do. Under In The Image Clothing Company, it's about the human body. And breathing is the first thing, right? Going back to biblical times. Yeah, right. God breathed into Adam's nostrils. That's literally what it says. And then there was life, right? There, Adam was then a man. It's just as real as it gets. So there you go. Shout out to the noise. Shout out to whoever stuck around through this, because it applies to every single human on the face of the earth forever. Hundreds of years here and there, thousands of years either direction. It applies to every person, anywhere. Everybody has to breathe. I mean, maybe you don't have a nose, right? Maybe you don't have an arm, and I'm talking about keeping short sleeves even, whatever. We're all on Earth's gravity, so there you go. I'm gonna keep talking as long as I keep talking. I know I took it off the soccer goal tripod. the camera here, but yeah, okay. It's as real as it gets. Because even something like this, you know, looking down, you have to be able to see, well, check this out. Maybe this is really why I'm holding this right now, no joke, in addition to the information that I said since I grabbed it off the soccer goal. But when you're looking down, you have to be able to clear your nose with your vision. Otherwise, you'll compensate by turning your head, right? You can't see past your own nose if it's in the way. So if you've got cartilage built up, oh man, that's crazy. That is what I needed to say, for sure, at least, before I cut this. If you do have cartilage built up on the right side of your nose, scar tissue, excess skin, as I did, like I'm saying, you can see it through documented videos. You can just see how my nose looks different, truly. Today's date versus any time before now when it is different. You can't look past your nose as easily on one side as the other if your nose is off centered. Okay, so that's why often it is hard to hold things in your left hand that you have to look at and focus on and concentrate to do. You're trying to look down and your nose is in the way, so you have to either turn your head and now your body's altered and that hurts, or you just put it in your right hand and then it just keeps you in this patterning of right-handedness. And that's really a lot of the things that really do keep people in a right-handed patterning. Like I say, posture, it comes down to things like the nose and things like the cartilage in the ears, right? And then cartilage in the ears that's altered can alter your nose because it moves your jaw centered, and then as we've talked about, the correlation between the jaw and the nose. So anyway, yeah, we have to be able to see evenly past our nose. And in modern 2025, we are doing similar to what I'm doing right now, which is something we never did in the past. We have technology. I don't talk about it very much at all because it always changes, right? And very, very rapidly. But the patternings that people get into might stay, right? So let's say you're spending a lot of time looking down and to the right at something in your hand, okay? Our modern technology or whatever it is, but yeah, okay? You will have, like I was saying, you know, just looking down and left, the gravity effect to your whole face and all the skin on it and everything, the whole body will just be pulling down from gravity's center. And if you're like this, looking down at something, okay, breathing, because it's not just about gravity, but then now you're breathing, always looking just one direction like this. But then, man, see, we can talk about it as deep as we can talk about it. We've got an entire lifetime of In The Image Clothing Company. But like I was saying, you know, documenting things as of today's date, you're only going to even be able to hold anything at all on the side that's the most inhibited, which is strange. But sleeves, sitting on your forearms, that's the side you're going to be holding things with and looking down to. Even though it's the side that's harder to do that with, it's the only side you can actually do it with, because the other side has to compensate and hold you up. And if you have something in your other hand, even if that hand works better, now it can't support your body being the better working side because it's doing something. So what we do is actually use our non-dominant side as just like this designated supporting side. And we put things in our hands, we do things on the side of our body that works the least well, okay? Just like, you know, even though the pathway through your nose is clearer on the right side because you're blowing your nose off to the right side, it's actually inhibited more because your lungs can't expand on the right side, because if you lean right, you actually close off your right rib cage. So even though more air can come through your right nostril, you can't expand your right lung as much as your left. And this is the problem with being uncentered. This is the problem with clothing imbalances. This is wherein the Image Clothing Company comes in. We give the actual fixes to problems that people otherwise will never get to the bottom of. Okay, if you don't know where it's coming from, how could you fix it, right? You just can't. So I feel it in my nose, literally holding this thing like this, because of what I was saying. It pulls on the skin, it pulls on your whole face. And, you know, especially me personally, after years of being in such a right-handed patterning, I'm holding something here with my left hand, right? My left arm is externally rotated. My right arm would then be internal to just compensate, just, you know, to keep me over gravity's center. And now all the skin, again, through the whole head, because the skin on the top of your head's the same skin as your whole body. So everything's being pulled on, as you can just see, right? Just for me to look down and left here at this little screen while I'm filming this. So I want to collapse because it's as real as it gets. There you go. Okay, the human body, there's only one way it could ever work. You are constantly breathing. The importance of even nostrils is important. Okay, and just be careful, you know, but yeah, you can break up the cartilage in your nose. You can do it gently. I mean, just be very intentional of when you blow your nose, because there's actually a video that I made under the main site of the Image Clothing Company titled "How Blowing the Nose Affects Body Mechanics." I really did. And yeah, I mean, just blow your nose very even pressure from each hand on each side of your nose. Keep your nose over your sternum, over your belly button, over your even feet, and keep your shoulders at even heights while you blow your nose. And I know that seems a little bit like particular and nitpicky to a lot of people, but you are constantly breathing. You know, you go to bed and blow your nose right before you do, very uncentered, and then the whole night that you sleep, you will be sleeping on probably only your right side. Okay. Phew. See, this is what I mean. We could get into so much. I could put it back onto the tripod, but it's fine to just walk with it like this. This is as real as it gets, though. Again, date marking, that's one of the biggest things. We've been saying the same things since the founding, right? 20, 30 years down the road, we'll have this video. That's what I mean. Okay, or however long down the road. Okay, the point being, yeah, people have a hard time sleeping on their left side. If your right nostril is the one that's like open more than the left, right? The one that allows more oxygen to come in than the left, well, your right rib cage will, as I was discussing a minute ago, actually close off because your nose is off to the right, and then your spine will just be off to the right as well. The ribs connecting into the spine, the right side of the rib cage will close off, and yeah, then you'll just have to sleep on your right side because you can't sleep on your left side without expanding your right rib cage. But to do that, you have to get your nose to the left, just because there's two sides to the body and the nose is in the center. Okay, I mean, this is as real as it gets. And so this is why we are what we are, allowing the human body to work. And yeah, right, the big point with glasses is just, yeah, gravity, you know? I mean, picture me doing this, not only gravity pulling on the skin of my face by itself, but now I've got frames of glasses pulling my body here, right? Rather than over my center of gravity, I'm looking off to the left in this case. The glasses would be pulling my face off to the left, okay? And that's directly on your nose where those little middle pieces of the glasses sit. Okay, we good? I'm trying to really do this without worrying about it being like weird because it's partially on the soccer goal tripod and partially in my hand. I just want to make it as real as I need to, as thorough as I need to, because I guess that's a good point to say is there's definitely a lot more that I know about just about everything I talk about under In The Image Clothing Company than I say in videos, because the videos are already long, right? We're at just around an hour with this one right now. So I've been talking through the whole thing. I mean, there's a lot of information to this. There's a lot that goes into it. There's only one way the human body could ever work. It's just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space. In the Image Clothing Company, we really do have the actual true fixes to the stuff we talk about. And there's no opinion, no questioning, and that's why the videos are long. I can't explain all this thorough and have it be something that's not as it is. And that's a gift in itself, right? So, shoot, that's amazing. All right, well, there you go. Okay, just anything discrepant in clothing, it will cause the body to be imbalanced. The head is on top of the whole body. It has to be stabilized. The head weighs like 10 plus pounds. And all the musculature in the head, all the movement, you're speaking with your jaw, you're breathing with your nose, you're chewing with your jaw, you're stabilizing your body with your jaw. It's all on top of everything, okay? And that's where the air is coming into our bodies, is through our nose. So the nose has to stay centered, okay? Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Yeah, you know, dental work can really alter the position of the jaw, sitting centered. You go into the dentist office with an imbalanced clothing, and you'll come out after having dental work done with an imbalanced jaw. Okay, and we talk about that. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled The Root Canal Story. Talked about how I had a root canal on my front left tooth. It's one of the biggest reasons that my body really has been in such chronic patterning, but it came from, like I just said, wearing imbalanced clothing into the dentist office. I was a kid, and yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's as real as it gets, okay? Takes a lot to get out of these patternings, but it can happen. I am somebody who has done it. I was thinking of maybe saying living proof of it, but I don't need proof. I just discuss things as they are. There's only one way. There's only one way the human body could ever work. We've got to have even nostrils, okay? Man, just not gonna cut it premature. I'm not gonna be allowed to. I tried to cut it 3 times. Okay, there you go, right? Just keeping the whole body in its neutrals. We talked about the whole right side of the body, the right pinky finger, the right forearm, the right collarbone, the right elbow, the right lower leg. That's where that dorsiflexion and plantar flexion comes from, the ankle and the foot. The lower leg's rotation gets inhibited by shoelacing, okay, by oversized clothing sitting on the right side of the body more than the left. We'll get into it as much as we get into it. I could talk about whatever I could talk about, but yeah, okay. The whole body will go straight to the nose because you're breathing. I mean, even this, you know, it's hard to lift my left shoulder because my left hand is holding this camera and keep my left shoulder even with my right. And so that would just close off the left side of my rib cage. And now, instead of coming from the nose down to the rib cage, now from your rib cage, it's coming up to your nose, you know, and now you'll just be breathing imbalanced out of your nose because you can't expand your lungs evenly because your hand is holding something up and your hand is essentially your shoulder. And that's the big thing. Like I'm saying, you know, even if we never wore clothing, to a degree, we'd still get into basically the exact same patternings just because of the right-handed world. But then the patternings get worn into and designed into clothing. And then that keeps us very, very, very stuck in the patternings, you know, even in the times that the patternings aren't coming just from clothing. So, man. It's one of those things I just want to collapse. Such a gift. All right. All right. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Clothing. The only fix to human beings' physical problems. Crazy. All right, there you go. Okay. Okay. I just don't want to cut it premature. But it's nuts, man. I mean, you know, like I've said, the idea of giving all my secrets away, where if I've got information, that's what we're here to do, is share it in the Image Clothing Company, man. So videos will be as long as they need to be. People almost never stand on their right leg, but you can't. If you can't expand your right rib cage, you can't elevate the right side of your body to actually be over your right foot. Okay, that could come just from the nose, but it can go to the nose from anything. Okay, shoes, shoelaces, pants, right? How pant cuffs affect body mechanics under in the Image Clothing Company's main side. Tops, you know, even just a top that's not waisted and it's just going to sit with more weight of the shirt tail on your hip flexor, inhibiting your hips just from that alone. How deep do we want to get with this one video? I mean, you have to keep your nostrils centered. Just is what it is, man. So, alright. Yeah. Well, even your hands. I mean, if your hand is holding things that are too large for it, where is that going to go? To your shoulder. Your hands are essentially your shoulders. And then to your nose. And so, you know, we talk about that. Things need to fit in our hands. It's a video I made under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company. But it's just the case, you know, if we're dominant with one side of our bodies, one of our hands will just be used more, and very highly probable that it will be altered. Okay, I've shown and documented my hands, and my right hand has been so much wider than my left, like in the actual bone structure, right? And that can stem from the feet. Uneven shoe tying to the right, your right foot can't grip an arch because arches grip inward, then that travels up to your hands because your hands are essentially your feet, basically the same thing with those hand arches, as I call them. So yeah, you know, your shoulder will be inhibited from your hand, then your nose. You'll always be breathing off to the side of the inhibited hand. Oh my gosh, I just don't know what to do with this. It's such an unconventional video. I mean, but as we are, you know, in the Image Clothing Company. So there you go. Okay. My heavens. All right. Thank you.